Welcome, everybody. My name is Allison Powers. I am the administrator of the Resident and Associate Society and here to welcome you to the Grand Rounds webinar series. Tonight with me is Mark Aeder, Patrick Bailey, and Ivy Haskins. So let me turn it over to Patrick Bailey and he can share with you a little bit about how this series got started.
Greetings from DC tonight and welcome. Thank you for joining us. I want to particularly thank Dr. Haskins and Dr. Ader and Allison for their help in bringing this to you all. In the past 6 months, we've had an interest expressed by the YFA and the RAS for a series of topics to be presented. And the Practice Protection Committee, of whom Dr. Ader is one of the most active and prolific contributors, have selected 4 topics that we're going to present to you in the next 4 months. And Dr. Ader is going to be speaking to you tonight on personal financial management. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Haskins to introduce Dr. Ader.
Thank you. Dr. Aeder is a New Jersey native who received his undergraduate degree and master's degree in immunology from Bucknell University and his MD from Washington University. He completed his general surgery residency at University Hospitals of Cleveland, spent 2 years at the University of Minnesota in transplantation research, and completed a clinical fellowship in transplant surgery at The Ohio State University. He entered private practice in Kansas City, where he founded the Transplant Institute at Research Medical Center and was recruited back to University Hospitals Cleveland Medical Center in 2004 to become the director of kidney transplant surgery. He is currently the University Hospital CMC Director of Surgical Quality and the Transplant Institute's Quality Medical Director. Dr. Aeder also worked as a client associate at Merrill Lynch, obtaining all the required SEC certifications, and since leaving Merrill, has spent over 20 years speaking to surgeons, physicians, and as a visiting professor at multiple universities, making it his mission to provide surgeons with an unbiased perspective on financial management. He wants every surgeon to enjoy financial security through well thought out plans. He has authored over 200 papers, book chapters, reviews, and accepted abstracts, and has served on and led multiple local and national public and private committees and boards. For the American College of Surgeons, Dr. Aeder is currently a member of the Practice Protection Committee, the Committee for Professional Opportunities for Senior Surgeons, and he co-chairs 2 committees in the Division of Education's Accredited Educational Institutes Consortium. He recently authored a chapter on personal financial management in the soon-to-be-released ACS Gold Book. For relaxation, he and his wife are avid outdoor photographers and explorers, and they have hiked together on all 7 continents.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the RAS for the invitation. I'd like to thank the ACS Practice Protection Committee. It's just a wonderful committee, and we're happy to be able to help sponsor this series of lectures for you. No conflicts to disclose. So I think you should always start every conversation with why. And I'm going to, just start this off. Why is this talk important? Why am I giving this talk, meaning me? And why am I at risk? The I there being you. So the talk is really important because it's talking about finances. And finances are really a huge blind spot in the medical profession because we really do have limited financial literacy as physicians. We have certain expectations. We have expectations about our career, about what we're going to do. And sometimes that does not equate to really the reality as you go along with your career. And we've spent so many years, look at this, 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 5 years of training, a couple of years of fellowship. I mean, you talk about delayed gratification. I think we take the crown, especially as surgeons. Why do I give this talk? Because we need to understand how to maximize our financial health. Now, we do have a reputation in the industry, and my time at Merrill Lynch taught me that, as being fairly uneducated investors. And that sets us up for a lot of things that I don't think are quite fair, because I think we really have a lot more insight than some people may give us credit for. But We do have short attention spans, let's face it. I mean, especially in surgery, we do have discomfort in talking about finances with other people. I give the talk because I'm not going to give you any bias on this. I mean, this is, I'm going to tell you the way I think should hopefully help you get over some of these humps. I did work for Merrill Lynch for a few years. I passed my Series 7, 52, 53, was a certified financial planner. I was a registered client associate. So there is some background there. But why am I at risk? Meaning you. You're starting years behind your contemporaries. Many of the people you went to college with are long out in their careers. They've already had 10 years out in the business world. And many of you have families, social responsibilities. You're becoming that tweener generation between your parents and your children. You are so overextended with debt after college and medical school, more so, I think, than any other professional. You've missed savings opportunities, and you're entering a market that definitely has limitations on what your yearly salary is going to be and how much of an increase you can expect each year. And the career goalposts where you're going to be, they're constantly changing. And there's a lot of information out there about investing and how do you sort through this. So this is a neat little slide that takes a look at your personal and professional life. And they're really integrated. And all of us have gone through this or are going through this at some point. If personal life is good and your professional life is good, you're pretty happy, you're healthy, you're doing all these sorts of great things. If one of them is off, if one of them is challenging, it's really affecting, it's stressing you out. You're not as happy going to work. Your personal financial health really impacts your personal life. And when it weighs down on your personal life, it weighs down on everything else and could lead to burnout and other symptoms that we have. So it's important that we maintain our financial health. We're going to talk about a few definitions here. We're going to talk, first one we're going to talk about is wealth. Wealth is your total assets minus your liabilities. Well, what are your assets? Your assets are your income, your savings, your investments, your inheritance, anything that you have and own is your assets. Your liabilities are all the obligations you have. Anybody that you owe anything to, whether it's financial or otherwise, that's your liability. And I will tell you that for wealth, you really can't save your way to wealth. I'll talk to you about some of the savings that you're going to do. I'm going to tell you that you're going to have multiple opportunities, but the most important thing about saving is to start early and to do it often. Well, the government has helped us out here. And they have set up retirement accounts. And these are tax-free or tax-deferred options that all of us have the opportunity to invest in. The easiest one is an IRA, individual retirement account. You can put away $6,000 a year regardless, and it will grow tax-free. You only pay taxes on it when you take it off. So you have that opportunity with, that's called a traditional IRA. You don't pay taxes on the money that you contribute to this IRA, but your withdrawals are taxed. If you're not, above these income levels, $125,000 to $140,000 for an individual, the other number for our couples, you can actually open a Roth account, and that means you put the money in and you've already paid taxes on the money, so that once you've paid taxes on the money, anything that's there in that account will not be taxed when you withdraw it. Whether you open up a Roth, which I highly recommend if you can, or a traditional, if your salaries are too high, open one up, fund it, start putting away some money. There's a defined contribution plan, depending upon who you work for. They'll have a 403B for nonprofits, 401k for profits, thrift savings program for some government agencies. And you can put away $19,500 a year into these programs. Again, it is not taxed against your yearly income tax. And many times your employer is going to give you a match, a certain percentage, maybe a few $1,000s a year, literally of free money, and you put it in these accounts. Now, what you do is you put them in these accounts, they grow tax deferred. You cannot touch it until you're 59 and a half years old. So you're incentivized to leave it alone. I mean, you're heavily penalized if you have to take it out before then, but understand that they're going to be taxed at withdrawal, but you get to keep this money and it keeps growing for you. It's $25,500 a year this year, and it seems to go up every year. You're saving over $2,000 a month at 20 years. That's over $1 million at 7% return. That's a great start for anybody who's young, starting out, and wants to start to build up a nest egg for later on in life. If you have a high deductible insurance, you can open up an HSA account, health savings account. You can pay your deductibles out of that, or it effectively becomes similar to an IRA. You keep the money, you don't lose it. The other ones you can put money away in, although it is post-tax money, is 529 accounts for education. You've got to get used to try to save this sort of money. You've got to pay yourself first, especially into your retirement accounts. And then you should also pay yourself into your personal savings accounts. And when I say personal savings, I'm talking about savings, investing, rainy day accounts. You should save money that's not in your retirement account. As you'll see, you're going to need it. I just want to talk to you about a couple of important considerations, and that is protecting yourself. And the best way to protect yourself is insurance. And what insurance is that you pay somebody a premium, you pay them an amount of money, and they cover you for a loss over a defined period of time. So it's a defense, it's something. You pay auto insurance every year. Hopefully you never have to use it, but you're paying on the eventuality that something is going to happen and you're not going to be out a huge expense. Well, there are 3 types of insurance that every physician should have. This is in addition to auto, home, professional liability, and such. You should have life insurance, you should have disability insurance, and umbrella insurance. So briefly, let's go through this. If you have life insurance, know why you own it. Who are you trying to protect? You're trying to protect the people who lent you money or gave you money or supported you. You're trying to protect your family. You're trying to protect children. You're trying to protect some sort of lifestyle if something drastic happens to you. Make sure if you have life insurance, you update your beneficiaries as they change, maintain adequate coverage. As your salaries go up, you should have more life insurance to cover. As you get later on in life, then it becomes an investment sort of question as to how much you need. More than your employer provides. You'll get a contract and it may say that they'll give you life insurance for 2 or 3 times your annual salary. That's not going to go very far if God forbid, your survivors need access to those major funds. Remember, you have so much invested in what you do, you need to protect it. Get it while you're healthy. Once you own an insurance policy and you can get $1 million, $1.5 million, whatever, and you're healthy, no matter what happens to you, you own that policy. Your health rating does not affect that policy. If you cancel that policy and try to get a new one, it'll be much more expensive. For younger surgeons, I recommend term insurance. It's relatively cheap. Disability insurance, this is the important one. This is what you stayed up for, and this is why you're not watching Monday Night Football. Buy a policy now. I mean, just get one. You need a financially stable company up to the limit you can afford. Pay for it with after-tax dollars. It's going to be expensive. But if you're 30 years old, you probably have about a 50-50 chance of having a long-term disability before you retire. And 90% of those are due to medical conditions or something happening that was completely unexpected. So you need disability insurance. Again, get it while you're healthy, own your own policy. Once insured, always insured. Take it up to the maximum that they'll give you. They're not going to cover your total salary. They may cover you for a third of it or 40% of it, but certainly not for everything. But if you pay for it with after-tax dollars, if you ever have to tap into it, you don't have to pay income. You don't have, it doesn't hit as income tax. Make sure that you look at this carefully. You may need an independent insurance broker to help you compare terms, riders, stipulations. You need a cost of living rider. Make it specialty specific. If you're a vascular surgeon and you cannot do vascular surgery, you may be able to do radiology or health exams. You're not a vascular surgeon. It should pay. Many of the employer-sponsored policies are income replacement. So if you're doing something else, that it won't pay you once you reach a certain income level. So own your own policy, make sure it's good. Umbrella insurance, very briefly, it's extra liability protection beyond your standard limits. You have a liability policy for your auto, for your home or whatever. Somebody falls in your yard, breaks a leg, or you have a motor vehicle accident and you end up getting a lawsuit. These umbrella policies will cover you. You buy $3 or $5 million of coverage. It's a few $100s a year. And it takes all that worry off, because if they see MD or DO or something after your name, it helps protect you and protects your assets. So we've talked about critical insurance products and savings opportunity, and now we have to talk about financial practices. This is the big thing for many people on this webinar tonight, and that's debt. What is debt? It's how much you owe from loans, and it's how much you spend. That's your accumulated debt, and its impact is pretty significant. It limits your ability really to borrow money if you have too much debt. It's 30% of your credit score. It can affect your insurance rates. If you have low debt, you generally get a better insurance rate. And it really limits your opportunities to obtain credit. I don't know how many of you follow your credit score fairly regularly, but this is what makes up your credit score. Payment history is the big thing. Try never to be late or to miss a payment. And if you do, plead about it. I've always set myself up, my wife sets herself up for automatic payments. So we don't even have to think about being late for anything. Debt, as we said, 30%, how long you've had credit is a factor. Then the diversity, auto loans, mortgages, and your recent credit history. If you're opening up a lot of credit cards, your credit score is going to go down. But debt is the big thing. And I want to tell you, not all debt is bad debt. You have to separate out your good debt from your bad debt and prioritize paying off that bad debt. That bad debt is credit card debt. It's those things that you're paying 10 or 12% a month in interest on. Just unbelievably high interest rates. Or it may, if you look at all your debt, the highest one may be 7%. So pay that off. Any debt that's higher than you can make on that money, that's what you need to stratify and prioritize. Pay that off quickly. You have a mortgage at 3%. My gosh, that's really good. I mean, that's just keeping up with inflation, although inflation's gone up a little bit. But I wouldn't rush to pay off that kind of mortgage. If you have scheduled debt, make sure it's in your budget. And if somebody loans you money, if family loans you money or whatever, you may be able to negotiate terms on that and maybe stretch that out. Your scheduled debt, I call it the unavoidable debt, your student loans, your home, your auto, really large purchases. But always remember that your future dollars are always going to be worth less than current dollars. $100 in 2010 buys a lot more than $100 in 2021. And that's the way it's going to be. So the lower the interest rate, the longer the term you want. Somebody gives you an auto loan at 0.9%. You ask, how long can I have it? They'll say 5 years. You'll say, that's great. It'll be 5 years. How much you putting down? Nothing. I'll finance the whole thing. Push the debt out. Let somebody else carry the cost of that money for you. Your goal really is to get your debt ratio down to less than 0.4. That's what a lot of these companies look for in order to be able to give you the better rates. What would that mean? If you have $40,000 in outstanding debt and you have $100,000 in the bank, that's 0.4. So that's where you want to be. If you can get below that number, that puts you in a good ballpark. That gets you a good credit score, good credit rating. So don't just start off life and just reduce your debt. You have to increase your savings while you're reducing your debt. Certainly don't default on it. Really, if you can't afford something, if you can't pay it off in a month or whatever, you really have to plan for it and kind of delay that. Don't carry debt from month to month. Sometimes it's an emergency, but most times it's optional. Create a budget. I mean, nothing's more important than that. Look at it on a monthly basis. Create a balance sheet. That's what it's called. All your monthly income on one set of columns, all your expenses on the other columns. If your expenses exceed the income, cut your expenses. If your income exceeds the expenses, don't increase your expenses, save the difference. Believe me, in the long run, that's going to be tremendous for you. Home. You're going to go out, you're going to get a home or whatever, just buy the home you need. You can always trade up, and the geography is so specific. There are some areas you'll go into, you can't even begin to think about affording a home. So you rent. If you're only going to be in a place for 2 years, you rent it. Because once you own real estate, it's not a liquid asset. You can't turn it over right away. You have to go through a whole sale process. There's a lot of expenses with it. So understand how long you're going to be in an area before you have a home, and always know that as things go along and things get better, you can always trade up on your home, because there's a lot of costs in a home besides the mortgage, as you see here. Everything from taxes to insurance to upkeep. Know your credit score before you go for the mortgage. Don't buy a car before you buy a home. Do it the other way around so nothing lowers your credit score. Here's my thing on autos, and this really, kind of frustrates me a lot, because I see opportunities that are certainly lost in this area. Your car is going to spend more time in park than in drive. And for many of you, it's just a way to get to work and then get back in the car 10, 12 hours later and go home. And that's it. And you may rack up 5, 10, 15 miles each way, and that's about it. It's not anything I walk through. I watch some of the residents, and I certainly watch some of the junior attendings really spending a lot of money on the cars. And I always said, if you just save $300 a month, and even at 5%, which is still pretty easy to do today, you'll have over $150,000. You do that for each car, just keep on multiplying that. Own versus lease, I think you have to look at the financial deals and everything. Right now, with cars being hard to get, actually the lease deals are better than the own deals and buying a car straight out. So really be practical about a car. You're not used to really living, a large life. You're used to, living within your means, and you're going to have an easier time. You're going to make a good salary, but save your money, because you're going to need it. You're going to want to get it to grow. The earlier you start saving, the more it will grow, and the more you will have to be able to enjoy at a time down the line. Whether it's 10 years down the line, 20 years, you'll be enjoying it a lot more. Things don't always go as planned. Your professional career may take a hiccup. Your personal life may take a hiccup. So just really have something, something in reserve. Now I'm going to tell you there's 4 factors in investing. We're going to talk about investing for a moment. There's how much you have to invest. There's the time you have for that money to be invested. The longer the time, the more opportunity. There's how much risk you want to take on that money, or how much of a percentage gain you're looking to get out of it, and what your total return is. These are the things that you really should be thinking about. I'll tell you about the rule of 72. It's pretty easy. You divide 72 by the average rate of return, and that tells you about how long it's going to be before you double your money. So if you're in an investment that's paying 4% a year, it's going to take you 18 years to double your money. If your whole career is 36 years, you're going to double it twice. If you get 12% a year, because you were a little bit more aggressive in your investing, it's 6 years. You will double your money 6 times during that time. Makes a huge difference as you go through life and you're faced with your expenses. So here's a little graphic on investment principles that I just try to show you. You can be really highly conservative down here at 2 to 3% on the left-hand side. I do have my mouse here working, but that's really destructive. You can be highly aggressive, 30% or more, and unless you really know what you're doing, you may as well be going to the casino, because that can be really dangerous. You have to develop some degree of tolerance. And I find most surgeons, most docs tend to be pretty conservative, and I'll explain why in a future slide. But what I want to get you to think about, especially as you're young, is to try to move yourself up here. Don't be in the dangerous category, but certainly, take advantage of every opportunity, because we work off a set of facts and we work off a certain mindset that for some reason we have that becomes, it's almost like, the story becomes legend and the legend becomes myth. It's hard to break. So the facts, why am I at risk? Your earning age is delayed. You're going to have a limited career lifespan, and you're starting out pretty late. You've got significant debt, and it's been deferred. You're going to have to pay it off. You're going to be over 70% of surgeons are employed. You're going to have a salary. You're going to have competition for that. I mean, it may be a challenge in terms of your peak earning potentials. You're vulnerable, like I said in the very beginning. You're pressured for lost time. You said, I got to do something, and that's where you have to be real careful about your decisions. And then you need to have the time in order to be able to keep your priorities straight. So for that, I'm going to move into the mindset part. Our education's in the sciences. Everything's factually based. We have a path progression. You go to college, you go to high school, college to medical school. Then you're going to find a residency. Then you're going to find a fellowship. Then you're going to have a job. It's pretty low risk all the way through. And then you get the first paycheck and you're euphoric. I mean, it's more money than you've ever seen in a paycheck. And you're there and you're just kind of, it becomes a little bit more complex for you on how to approach it. You love the security of a steady situation, and you've really got to step out of that mindset. With retirement, again, I talked to you about the conventional IRA, the 403b, 401k, tax-free growth. It's taxable, the Roth IRA, no tax. But your non-retirement savings down here, they need time. There are multiple options, and remember, they're taxable. But the point of this being is that where we have to go with this is to be able to maximize this so that you can enjoy your money. Saving your way to retirement, if you make $333,000 a year, pretty decent year to start off at age, a salary to start off at age 32. I'm just going to make the numbers work here. So after 33 years, you gross $11 million. Assume that you're in a tax rate of only 40%, and we don't know where the government's going with this. Take 40% off the table there, you have 6.6 million left. And I guarantee you, your monthly expenses are going to be a minimum of $15,000 a month when everything is all said and done, whether it's your housing, your loan repayments, utilities, and everything. And for 33 years, that's nearly 6 million of that. And that just leaves you, if you don't invest that, you're going to end up with $660,000 or not very much in order to be able to cover your normal lifestyle. So you're going to need to invest your money and look for good returns. Now, there are new dynamics, and this has changed over the past few years, that the returns on investments really have layered out between what we call growth stocks and value stocks. And the significant gains that we've seen in the market have been in certain sectors. You probably know technology is one of them, but you have to not only be in the right sector, you have to have the right equities or the right stocks in those sector. And to try to pick these and to try to know the best time to buy and sell, I mean, while I'm trying to operate, it's something that I find very distracting. We used to say you should be diverse and all, but if you put your money in bonds today, what is it paying? It's paying less than 2% on treasury bills. Try a CD, which is less than 1%. And in Europe, they actually have negative interest, which means you lose money on that. There's no real diversity. There's no other choice in terms that you're going to have to try to invest your money. And with the number of products, it's really overwhelming. It really is to try to get your arms around this. There's going to be volatility, and we'll look at that on a slide in a moment. Market's going to go up and down. You're going to drive yourself crazy. We have all this information thrown at us. We have everybody writing on these things. There's just so much in these new dynamics. Hype. Look, multiple platforms. We started out, we had cable financial, then we went to websites, then you went to the YouTube channels, and now everything is TikTok. And you have all these influencers that are trying to tell you what to invest in, and they really have no investing background or anything like that. They're salespeople. They sell subscriptions. They get advertisers to support their product. Be careful about where you're sourcing your information, because we used to have trade floors. You had to go through a brokerage house. Then it became electronic. Don't start off. I think the first one was E-Trade, then TD Ameritrade. And now we have so many sites you can do your own trading and day trading. Really, choose your source and platform carefully. And I really can't say this enough. You're going to have significant funds to invest. You really are. You're going to have a lot of money to invest relative to most other people. Spend time selecting a financial advisor, because in any month, really, you'll spend more time deciding on which restaurants to eat at than you will on your financial health. That should be the other way around. So I think selecting a financial advisor really is the most important decision in your life. One of the most important, certainly not the most important. But you have to be careful. Don't pick a family member. Don't pick a good friend. Things go bad, and you don't want a toxic relationship. You may have difficulty getting an introduction. You're not a big investor, but some people can make referrals for you. Certainly, you don't need sales pitches. You don't need some dinner at a steak restaurant. You don't need any of that sort of stuff. You need somebody who's serious, not somebody who's going to promise you returns. And any recommendation that somebody gives you should have some at least good, bad cycle that they see how that advisor reacts. Try to rely on one or at most two people. Do your due diligence, because it's really high stakes. What do I look for? I look for somebody who listens. Somebody's a good listener who understands my unique situation, who understands what makes me, my family, my overall situation different from any others, what my goals are. They have to have a passion. They have to have the same passion for their job that you bring to surgery every day. You have to feel comfortable with them. You have to go through a process and interview as many people as you need until you find that person. They would like your business, but it's not like they're doing you a favor by taking them on. You're doing them a favor by trusting them with your hard-earned assets. Names, I generally rely on Barron's is a good place to start. It has multiple articles about top financial advisors. You may not meet the minimums with these, but at least you'll kind of get some idea. Doesn't even have to be local, so it can be a different state. But if you're going to find somebody who's not with a major brokerage house, whether it's Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Schwab, or somebody like that, check out things like Broker Check or sec.gov to make sure that there haven't been incidents involving the individual or the company that you're planning to deal with. You're going to go through a real emotional roller coaster here from euphoria, when things are going up, to despair and panic. And then you can become optimistic. The thing is to really hold the line here. You need to overcome the thoughts that owning individual stocks is risky, or you just use index funds, and you certainly will drive yourself crazy if you're going day to day. So here's the Dow over the last 25 years. And you can see here, it had a nice little run up to 2000, had a dip here. We came along, here's the crash of 2008. And now you're fortunate, here's the dip in March 2020 with COVID. We've been on the best roller coaster in Dow history. This has just been incredible. Because if we take a look at the Dow over 125 years, it really didn't move much. Here's the Great Depression here in the late 20s, early 30s. You can see it wasn't until the 1990s that things started to take off. Here's 2008, here's the crash 2001. Look at this volatility. My gosh, it looks like somebody in VFib. And then not everything is equal. And I wanted to show you this, is that this is since the beginning of 2020. You can see the NASDAQ, which tends to be tech heavy, is up 60%. The S&P 500, 30%, the Dow up 20. And this is as of a couple of months ago. They're still setting records. You'll hear about that, but it really makes a difference on how you invest. And when you look at that gray line, the S&P, you can see that there's volatility here from there's Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple, but they tend to drive the S&P. They're the biggest ones in terms of contributing. So if you own these stocks, you're going to be doing better than owning the S&P. So really, get off of owning individual stocks is risky, or get off of just index funds. If you bought into the, this is the S&P, I'm sorry, yeah. No, I'm sorry, this is the Dow. If you bought into the Dow index fund in 1999, you can see it took you until just into 2010 before you broke even. And that doesn't account for inflation or anything else like that. So if you own the individuals, you probably made out a little bit better, or quite a bit better than owning that, owning the index fund. So again, I'm trying to move you from here to start thinking about moving here. Alternative investments, I'll tell you, not for the faint of heart. If you're going to get into this, I don't recommend you doing it with more than 2% of your assets, because some of them are very volatile, not ready for prime time. And make sure you have a good base and understanding. The Wall Street Journal has some excellent podcasts that they update every day that I listen to. I mean, they're just little tidbits and all. But here's one. I'm sure many of you have heard of the GameStop rise, and there was an absolutely excellent 5-part series on their podcast, The Journal, called To the Moon, and it was about Wall Street bets and how that drove that GameStop GameStop stock all the way up. And it was crowdsourced, as you know, go big, go home, all these sorts of memes that kind of came in. It was, you have fear of missing out, all this sort of stuff. That's probably not where you want to be. It's very volatile. The other one right now, Bitcoin, or pick your currency, very volatile trading. We're not really sure where that's going. The government's, the treasuries trying to regulate it through the IRS. We're not exactly sure where this is going right now. Can you make money there? Yes. Can you lose money? Yes. But you really have to, follow this closely and know what you're doing. Here was a great plan that I had. I saw this, bought up a whole bunch of them, took them back, water planted them in a whole bit. And I can tell you they haven't yielded any fruit yet. So maybe one day. Take home, maximize your employer contributions, your tax deferred savings, budget to save another 10% each month out of what you take home. Control your debt, be smart. And the most important thing, if you don't have disability insurance that you own in your name, paid for with after-tax dollars, then I think you got to go out and get it now. Get a financial advisor, get an accountant. Whether you need an attorney or not, it depends upon your situation, but certainly a good financial advisor. Invest to maximize returns and limit your tax losses. Consistently assess your goals, keep on track, stay informed. I recommend just getting a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. I think they make everything easy to understand. As somebody told me years ago, I may not understand anything in it, but I'll find something that I learn every day. Great podcasts, great online stories, everything. I think it's really worth your time. The ACS Gold Book is coming out for residents. It's a little plug for it. And I was fortunate to write the chapter on personal financial management and keys to doing what we hope are the right things. And then maintain your focus. It may be a marathon, but I don't want you to be a snail or a turtle in this one. You've got to keep moving. And of course, always ask why. So hopefully I've given you a path to follow. I don't know if it's going to be as straight as this one, but it's going to be something for you to be able to at least start asking the questions on. As I said to others, it's more fun giving this in person and to be able to interact with everyone. And hopefully we'll have that opportunity at a college meeting, at a clinical congress soon. Meanwhile, I'd like to thank the RAS for the invitation to present, and the RAS and the president, Dr. Sun, the YFA, the president, Dr. Maman. Allison, thank you very much for all the work you do in putting this together. Dr. Pat Bailey, who's really been a pleasure to work with, and his dedication to the Practice Protection Committee and the advocacy arm of the ACS has just been incredible. So thank you to everyone there. And we're going to stop and see if anybody has any questions here.
Great, thank you so much. So the first question is, what's the perfect time for young surgeons to buy a house? Is it better to save money to buy it or buy it using installments like a mortgage?
So I think it depends upon where you live. If you live in an area where housing prices are out of sight, we just went through one of the big, as most of you know, home price increases that really priced so many people out of the markets. There are certain markets that were historically high where prices are falling. The San Francisco area, they had a big drop. But you have to take a look at your local market. Even though house prices, I live in the Cleveland area, and even though house prices have gone up, they're still very affordable for surgeons. But understand, if you're only going to be there a few years, or you're not sure exactly what's going to happen after 2 or 3 years, probably better to rent, save your money, and not get into it. If you think you're going to be there for, 5 years, 3 to 5 years or longer, then I think it's a pretty good investment as long as you can afford it. Your home cost, your mortgage should never exceed more than 1/3 of your take-home income. I think that's really pushing it because you have to also add in property taxes, insurance, and everything else. But mortgage rates are good too now. So I think it's a very individual decision, very geographically based.
Thank you. Now switching gears to insurance, what's the best way to find a good and fair disability insurance policy?
I used an independent broker, somebody who sold multiple policies, and I spoke to a few of them in order to get the kind of the lay of the land. They will generally shop for you. They make their money really as a percentage of what they're able to sell, but they're going to be able to tell you the benefits and the costs of multiple insurance products. So I would just keep asking questions, look for them, look for what they allow, in terms of riders, cost of living, own specialty. I think these are really the key points. Make sure that the insurance provider or who you have your insurance with is a real financially stable company. They go out of business, it's really kind of tough. So talk to at least one, if not two or three, independent insurance brokers who specialize in that. You're going to get a lot of emails from people wanting to sell you insurance again, or they say, "Oh, we're the insurance broker for doctors." I mean, you can listen to them, but I think I would step outside that because not you do have a unique spot, but you also want somebody with a more global interest as well.
Now, speaking of debt, is there any reason to get a financial advisor before you pay off school loans? It seems
Oh,
like they just say pay your loans first.
do not do that. Pay your loans down and save money at the same time. You're already 10 years behind most of your colleagues in terms of building up reserves. And that's all the more reason to be very careful on how you budget and how to spend your money and putting things away. If you delay saving, then you're not going to have the time for it to be able to work for you. And so I would say just pick the worst loans, try to pay them down a little bit quicker. The low interest loans, let them ride out. I can tell you one of my loans from medical school, probably I ended up paying off about 18 years later, just because the interest rate was so low. Just let it ride out, but definitely start to look for savings and financial advisement as early as you can. You need to put away those funds. It's probably the most important thing you're going to do. You don't want to walk into life in your late 50s and say, "Oh my gosh, now I got to start saving," because you're not going to get there.
So speaking of a financial advisor, where would you start looking for such an advisor and how much should you expect to pay?
Good question. I think the first thing I would do is talk to some people. And again, you're going to have companies or corporations that say, "We're the financial advisors for doctors. We know all about doctors," and that's probably, it's probably true that they have a lot of physician clients, but I think you really have to start asking people, certainly asking people who are non-physicians about what they do. Ask some of your other colleagues, especially people in the business world. I will tell you, physicians and lawyers generally don't do the best job in terms of financial management sometimes. So, but people in business, that's their lifeblood, and they can generally steer you in the right direction. And that's where I would start to talk. That's where I would come with a list of questions. I think in the gold book, I put down a bunch of points and particular questions you'd want to ask about when you sat down with a financial advisor. Make sure they listen to you. If you're going to walk into a house that financial house that just sells mutual funds, that's all you're going to get. Fidelity has a lot of your retirement, but your mutual funds are in retirement accounts. So, which is, if you're going to have them, that's where they belong, because you're not paying taxes on that money every year. You would not want the mutual funds in your taxable accounts that you're paying taxes on every year. So you don't want to have a firm that just deals in, or primarily in, mutual funds. As I said, you want a firm that deals in equities. You can look at the bigger brokers. You can look at other brokerage houses, or not brokerage houses, but financial investing firms. But you really have to know a bit about them and be able to trust them, because again, you have to be able to trust the paperwork and the execution. How much you should expect to pay depends upon how much you're going to have invested. When you first start off, it may be 1.2% or something like that. And it's going to be over 1% each year. But if they're making you money and that's what they're charging you, that's probably pretty good. And the incentive to pay them a percentage of what they manage for you works both ways, because the more they make for you, the more their percentage is. They're going to, that 1% becomes more money if you have a bigger amount. As your accounts grow, they'll drop it down to 0.75 and 0.6 and 0.5 as you get into some big numbers. But I think 1.2%, 1 to 1.2% is probably acceptable if they're really managing your money. If they're really, not just buying a stock and holding on to it for years and you're seeing no movement, or just moving mutual funds around. You can do that on your own.
Do you think you should use a fiduciary instead of a financial advisor?
No, I think again, get somebody who's passionate about what you do, about what they do. Get somebody who's really into it. I talk to my look, I know a lot of this background. I worked in the field, but I never managed my own money. I need somebody to be objective about what they're doing. You have to pick somebody who really knows that they are sitting there and watching everything. They're listening, they're reading, they're doing, they're top of their game. And if you find somebody like that, that's the person who's going to bring you forward. So it really takes, I'm not going to tell you where to go or anything like that, but sometimes if you go to a larger corporation, they generally have more options for you in terms of being able to have different areas covered, and they have different people who are providing information at various sectors for which your financial advisor is going to benefit. They're on calls every day. They're listening to updates every day. And believe me, they're watching it very closely.
So here's a question. What's the ACS Gold Book?
The ACS Gold Book, from what I understand, and again, Allison, you may have a little bit more insight, but it's going to be really, if you're familiar with the ACS Red Book, which is the real guide to surgical quality, and it's one that we really refer to for all aspects of questions we may have with good tips. The Gold Book is going to be distributed to every residency program with the idea that this is going to provide basics for residency surgical education and key facts and things to really highlight, so that that all the residency programs get the benefit, the surgical residency programs get the benefit from a single guide source from the college to supplement their other education. And from what I understand, it's going to be out within the next couple of months.
Great, thank you. It looks like we're running out of time, so I'm going to give you one last question. Should you move your 401k from an old job to a new job?
You have two options with a 401k. You can move it from your first. You have to see what it's invested in. You can keep it with your old job. You can move it to your new job, or I'll tell you what I've done in my career is I have moved my 401k, or actually 403bs. I have moved them into my IRAs because that way I don't have my employer's advisors investing my money and deciding, what to invest it in, or just have limited choices. I have my own financial advisor be able to invest that money and be able to balance it with the rest of the investments that you may have all the way through. Always let your financial advisor know where all your money's invested and what it's invested in, because they're going to balance things out for you. A really good one will want to know so that you're not overloaded in one particular sector or something, so that you have the opportunity for maximal growth. But I would personally, I would just roll it over into my own personal IRA or my own personal retirement account.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending tonight, and Dr. Ader for your wonderful, sound, sage advice. Just so you know, this webinar was recorded and it will be placed on the ACS website under the Grand Rounds webinar series, which you can find by looking through the Young Fellows Association site or the Resident and Associates site. So please stay tuned for our next series, which will be in October, and we will continue this series from the Practice Protection group through December. There are probably 75 different archived webinars on the Grand Rounds webinar series. So if you're looking for a topic that could help you as you start your practice or end your resident years, please do look through those sources. Thank you again. And if you have any final words, Dr. Ader, I will go ahead and end the webinar.
I'll just, again, thank you very much, everybody. I look forward to being able to meet with you in person at an upcoming clinical congress. And again, just really good luck, save early, save often, and just do the best.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.